In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove and replace a power steering pressure hose on a Nissan Frontier with a 4.0 liter. Locate your battery on the passenger side front of the engine compartment, and you have your negative terminal, positive. We're going to take the negative cable off with a 10mm wrench or socket. Loosen it up just enough to get that terminal end off, and I like to tuck it somewhere underneath there so it doesn't come up and ground itself out. Remove the airbox hose and lid to access the area. So we're going to disconnect the mass airflow sensor connector. Squeeze that tab and lift up. And then you're going to have to take this tab out of the way because you want to take that harness out of the airbox. Just take a pair of pliers or something and squeeze those little plastic ears and pull that harness right through. Undo the two tabs that hold the air lid to the bottom box. You can actually, if you want to, pull that right up like that. Now we're going to follow the air tube right over to that throttle body, and you have two clamps holding that down, 8mm or a flathead screwdriver. Loosen them up. So now we're going to take this PC hose right off, PCV, pair of pliers, grab the clamp, push that clamp away. You can use the same pliers to just kind of wiggle that hose. Disconnect it. Now we have two screws up here taking this cover so we can access the other ones. 10mm socket, take that engine cover off. Take those two screws out and just lift it up. There's two rubber bushings holding it down after you take the bolts out. You have two more bolts right here holding this air tube down to that bracket, 10mm socket. Now we can just grab that and wiggle it right off the throttle body. Now we can take the airbox, spin it up, and you'll see the little vent tube right here with a nice little clip on there. Squeeze that, push that through, take that right out. Set that aside. Now we can take that whole air cover right out of the way. Going to remove the grill piece, and that's 6 clips on the top here, and there'll be 6 tabs on the inner edge. Pull up all the tabs. Now when you bring the grill forward like this, you'll see in here there's 3 long tabs. And you're just going to push down on the tab with your finger from underneath, push up, and then go to the next one, do the same all the way across. And then you can get the grill right out of the way. So we're going to drain all the power steering fluid out of the power steering reservoir. Now you can use like a syringe type tool or pinch the hoses off and drain it that way, pick it out. I have a vacuum thing. I'm just going to suck it out. Get all the fluid out that I can. All right, so we're at the end of it. See it just sucking air. We'll shut her off. I'm going to put the cover back on just to stop any extra mess. When doing this job, you don't need to drain the whole radiator. Just put a bucket underneath and catch some residual coolant that's going to come out of the upper hose when it comes off. So just with a pair of pliers, I'm going to squeeze that clamp. I'm going to take it off the engine too, just to make it that much easier for me. So this actually is a heater hose removal tool, so it shouldn't stab the hose. It gets underneath the tube and it just breaks the connection where it is. Like that. There we go. And just remove that upper hose. Now we're going to remove the overflow tank hose to the radiator. Pair of pliers, just squeeze that clamp. Get that out of the way. Now we can follow it from the shroud. Disconnect it over. Bring that right over there. Now we're going to go across and take the 3 bolts here connecting the shroud to the radiator, 10mm socket. AC pressure switch connector and disconnect it. There's a little tab you're going to push down with your thumb and pull on that electrical connector. Pull it right off. So let's disconnect the line, the connector, electrical connector to that electric cooling fan, and just take a pair of pliers, squeeze it down in there, pop the tab off. Sometimes they're not savable, so you can put a plastic tie in place to replace it once you remount it. Then the connector's right here. We're going to push down on that tab and pull. See if we can get a small screwdriver in there. Nice. Set it aside. Now that the shroud is disconnected from the radiator and the electric part of the fan is disconnected, we're going to grab that tab right here. We're going to have to manipulate that shroud forward and then pull this up. To access that steel cover, we have to take this lower bumper cover off. It's just a little strip that's hiding the bolts that mount that shield to the front bumper. 10mm socket. I'm going to go across it and take all the bolts out. There's 6 total. Now with this pulled down, we see 4 screws that have a Phillips head on them. So the steel shield has 4 mounting bolts. The 2 here on this cross member don't come all the way down. You just take a 10mm socket and loosen them, because the shield has a fork groove in it, so when I take the 2 up by the bumper down, it won't fall down. So now I can support this and take these 2 down the rest of the way. And I did manage to get this down. So now we're going to split the shroud, the top and the bottom shroud. There are two pieces. And basically you're just going to bring your arm down and you'll feel where that front piece kind of wobbles. Let me grab a good control over here. You'll feel like it kind of separates. Just give it a good pull and it will come right undone. Just like that. Now on the passenger side of the engine, you'll see the shield and how it has two pieces right here. That's where you're going to separate it on that side. So just give it a good push. It should come right out. Now that we've raised our vehicle up, we're going to just take that transmission line right out of that shroud so that we can raise it up from the top. And you'll see the two tabs right here, one here and one over the oil filter. So with both hands, I'm going to push that tab in, squeeze it with a pair of pliers, see if I can separate it, just like that. Follow it over right there where the oil filter is and do the same thing. Squeeze the tab, the ears on the tab, and push that shroud right up. Perfect. Now we can go up above. Well, let's get this out of the way first. There we go. And now we can go up above and pull the shroud out. So now we're back on the top of the engine. We're going to grab our shroud. It's cleared from the bottom from that fan because of the plastic piece we took off. And just work it right up and out of the way. So now we're back in the engine compartment, and here is our power steering pump. We're going to disconnect the power steering pressure sensor connector with this little black tab. So you get right there, push down, and then squeeze and pull it right off. Can be a little difficult. There we go. Tuck that up out of the way. Next, we're going to disconnect the pressure line from this banjo bolt to the pump. So I'm going to take a little absorbent pad because I'm sure there's going to be residual power steering fluid coming down. So I'm going to try to soak up the best I can, not make a mess. Now with a 24 millimeter socket or wrench, we're going to break this banjo bolt free. Right there. Give it a tug. And then you'll see your fluid dripping. Take that banjo bolt right out. Let's see if I can catch it. Soak it in. Take the line right off. Just kind of move that out of the way. So now we follow our power steering pressure line down. It goes along the top of the frame right here, and it goes right into the power steering rack. We're going to give it a little spray, let that penetrate in for a little bit. And it's going to be a 14 millimeter wrench that we're going to need to use. I did get an extension pipe to try to break this because it's been in there for a while. So we're going to put our 14 millimeter wrench on. Just move that hose out of the way. Hopefully we don't have to take that off. I'm just going to put an extension on there, see if I can get more leverage. Give it a twist. So obviously the wrench, even with that bar, I couldn't break that free. So I'm going to try a crow's foot so that way it doesn't round it off. Once I get that on there. Tap it down with a hammer. So I got a 1/2 inch breaker bar and a reducer on there to go from 3/8 to a 1/2 inch. Get that on there. Let's see if we can break that free. Don't be afraid to go back and forth. But I did break free. So now I'm going to bring it over here. See if we can twist it. Work it back and forth until it frees itself up. Now we can put some somewhat normal tools on there. Break that free. I think I switched over to a 3/8 drive so I can hopefully go a little faster. There we go. All right, so before I take that all the way out and make a mess, I'm going to undo my brackets. So last couple threads, catch basin, drain it. While it's draining, I can put the new hose in. So now we're going to follow the line, grab the first bracket right here, 10mm socket, take it, break it free. Set that aside because we're going to reuse it. Follow it down, and then right by the shield there's 2 mounting bolts, 10mm. So now with a shallow 10mm 1/4" drive, I'm going to get on that first bolt, take that out. And this last bolt. All right, so now we're gonna, line's free, ready to come out. Got a catch basin below the rack here. I'm just gonna loosen this up the rest of the way. You're always gonna have residual fluids, especially with something like this. The lines are filled with fluids, even though the reservoir is empty. Once we get this out, we have to transfer over the power steering switch, which is in line. There we go. So now that we have the old line out, we matched up our new line, everything looks great. I have to transfer over that pressure switch right onto that banjo type. So we have 1 1/16 for this, probably 27mm if I had to say equal. And I'm going to use a 11/16 on the actual line. It's a little loose, so it's about an 18mm if you used a metric. So let's break it free. Let's transfer it over. And I'm going to leave the old line here because I want to show you our line comes in a 2-piece system. So we're going to use it as a guide to see how to mount the second line and tighten it up. There's no torque, just snug it up. Okay. So here we have the old line, and what I mean, it comes in 2 pieces. The good news is we don't have to separate it because that could be really bad. So I'm going to loosely snug it, and I'm going to try to set it up the way this one is. So we know we have the line turned like that, and this line is turned right at that angle. That's about as close as we're going to get. This isn't too easy to get to once it's mounted in the truck, so that's why we want to get it as close as we can outside of the truck. So with that being said, we're going to snug that up. I got a 14mm wrench here and a 21 here. And I just want to snug it. Let's double check. And that's what did it. Perfect. The last step is the package comes with the O-ring and the banjo crush washers. And here's our O-ring right here. That goes on this very end. Take the O-ring, slide it over, hold it down with one finger, and roll it. Let it get all the way into that groove, sit like that. Confirm the old one is on the old line, which it is, because if it's not there, then it means it's stuck in the rack and you want to get that out. Now before installing, they supplied this little boot, and that's there for a reason. Put it over the end here so no dirt gets in there. Now we're ready to go to the truck. So I'm going to take my line and I'm going to bring the banjo side with the switch on it up through the bottom of the frame area and up to the power steering pump. Bring this around. There we go. Now you can see the importance of why that rubber plastic cover's on there. Look at all the dirt on it. So we took care of that. Before I mount it, I definitely want to start this hand threaded in. So I'm going to carefully guide it over, put it right in the rack. And with it loose, I can wiggle it. That will center it so I don't cross thread anything. Perfect. And now I'm going to check out my mounting. It's okay to bend the shields a little bit, get them all set. This bracket spins. So I think I like the way it's cleared from everything, doesn't rub on anything, looks good. Now I'm going to take my 14mm wrench and tighten down on that. Okay, that bottomed out right there. I'm gonna go for the final snug on that once I mount my lines. So after getting the line all lined up, feeling like I had it perfect, I see a lot better solution here. I'm gonna take this shield off with these 2 bolts. That way I can loosen this line up, really get to it. You can see the rubber hose is hitting the frame. You never want the hose to rub against anything. I still want to turn that quite a bit in the upward position. And then I can actually mount this on the frame without fighting it, then put that back together. So that's the route I'm going. So with a 10mm socket, I'm going to take that bracket mount off of the new hose. Just break it free. Might be able to just loosen it quite a bit, slide it off, we'll see. It's 2 of them. Oh, the back one's a pivot, so even better. We're just going to take it right off. So I'm going to get my 14mm wrench and my 21mm wrench again and loosen that up so I can spin that line around. There we go. Look at that, much better fit. Now that hose is not hitting that frame, it's perfect. This should spin in there, perfect, just like that. Get that bracket out of my way. Now I can tighten that line. I want this curve to go upward. Hold it at that angle and tighten up the steel line. Now let's take our bracket, guide it back in this Once you find one, the second one should be a lot easier. Okay, we're going to snug up all the mounting bolts. And the last one. And now we're just going to take that 14mm crow's foot, slide it right on there. Feel it bottom out right about there, and I'm going to give it a little 1/8 of a turn, maybe 1/4. Now that should be good. We're going to lower the vehicle and attach the banjo bolt to the pump. So now before we put our banjo bolt back in the line to the pump, you're going to reuse the old bolt. That's pretty common, but you get new crush washers, the little copper washers. So take the one on the bolt off. The other one that's on the pump side already came off. So you can put one new one on the head of the bolt area like that. Then you're going to take your banjo hose, put it right through like that. Then put the new secondary one, copper crush washer, on like that. Hold them. Now it's safe to take that rubber boot out. That is a packaging boot. Just take that out and discard it. Now you can see that the banjo bolt has this little nub on it. That nub lines up in that bracket so that it has the specific bend to it that it wants. So you can easily hold that with one hand and thread the banjo bolt quite successfully. And that's what it's going to look like. See how that is going right into that notch? And that bolt is started. Now I'm going to get my 24mm socket and snug it up. It just bottomed out right there. Being a copper washer, I'm going to really give it a good 1/4 of a turn. And that's about it. And now I got my connector, my harness side that goes to that pressure switch for that power steering. Click it on, here it lock up. When installing a shroud, I recommend putting the bottom piece in first. Now the thin side is on the passenger side and the extra wide is on the driver's side. You just want to rest it down there. It's so much easier to work with it once it's down there. Now we're going to take the shroud, guide that through. Line everything up. Okay, now that it's in place, we can get our electric fan and install it. Now we can grab our electric fan and install it, slide it down in between. Now don't forget to make sure the electrical part is facing, I got it going the wrong way, see? Make sure the electrical part is facing the engine because it fits right through that little slot. Might have to maneuver things, manipulate it a little bit. There we go. Now there's 2 spots down in the shroud where that the feet of that fan fit. The top one fits right in like that. Okay. Now you can fit your shroud back in the supports down below. Make sure all your hoses and everything's out of the way. Now I'm not going to bolt anything up because I'm going to raise the vehicle up and make sure the bottom is all in place before I tighten the top. So now we've raised our vehicle, we're underneath it, and you can see where these little tabs right here fit into these little circle cutouts. But we also have training lines that are run along the side. You want to make sure everything's clear, electrical lines, get them all in place. We have the electric fan in its spot right there. So now we can move the main shroud, kind of pull it down into that little tab. Same on this side. Just pull it down right into that tab. That worked out good. Now we have the bottom shroud that needs to get clipped in. So you can see the two clips. That had the little like rabbit ears that we pulled, pop free. And there you go. If you want to take a screwdriver, you can flare them up a little bit. Confirm that they're grabbing. That'd be good. Okay, now let's follow the transmission lines and pop them right in those little holders in that shroud. Little cutouts for them. You can make sure they're all seated nice. There is one up on the passenger side. Pop that in. Nice. Now we're going to put our shield together in our undercarriage. So now we can grab our metal shield, slide it up top of that plastic. And we have those two bolts down here. I'm just going to stop by hand so I can let go and let it rest on them. Now we're going to connect the shield to the steel front bumper, the bottom half. There's just two bolts that hold this in, 10mm socket. Never tighten anything up 100% until they're all in. As you can see, I sprayed the holes a little bit so I could get that to stay nice and loose. Now I'm just going to snug all four up. So you have these little 4 tabs that connect to that shield, and that was a Phillips head screw. I'm going to put all 4 in. We're missing that last screw right there. We can now put our bumper valance up, and it has 2 tabs right here. One there on the driver's side, and then one on the passenger side looks just like that. And they go right into those little key slots. So slide it up in there, bring it over, do the passenger side too. Now you can bring it forward, and it should clip right into place. Now these are 6mm threaded bolts. Set it by hand and work your way across. Snug them up. It's a 10mm socket. So now we can put our upper shroud together to our radiator. There's 3 mounting bolts, or holes, shall I say, 1, 2, and 3. And they're plastic type screws with a 10mm socket head. There's self-tapping screws. Get that one started. This one in. $10mm socket. I'm going to drive them right in. Now we can take our electric fan harness and reconnect it. You'll see those little plastic ears, snap them back into place. That goes over there. That one goes there. Put the connector in until it clicks. It was a silent click. That goes to the high pressure switch until it clicks. Now we're going to put our upper hose back on. Put the engine side on first, then attach it to the radiator. Make sure it is all the way on, right to that stopping point. We'll take our expansion clamps, get a pair of pliers. You always want to line them up with the old groove if you're reusing the old hose. Now we can put on our radiator overflow hose, run it under the upper hose, put it right in that little shroud connector. There's two of them. Hook it up to your radiator. Get your pliers. Put the clamp on. Now we're going to put our airbox back in, and you'll see the 3 tabs right here, 1, 2, and 3, and the 3 tabs are on the air cover. I'm going to slide those right in. Let them fall into place. You'll know they're in place because of the way the seat, it'll seat up here. You won't be able to get those clamps on. Just like that. Remount that vent hose on that little tab. Let it push down in. So while you're putting the throttle body hose on, the air hose, make sure you lift it up enough to get these 2 mounting screws cleared. And then push. And there we go. You'll feel them fall right into place. Now we can grab that breather hose, put that right on, and our mass airflow sensor connector. Don't forget the mounting clip. All right, let's get a pair of pliers, 10mm socket. Pair of pliers, I'm going to put the clamp back on that breather hose, lining it up to where it used to sit. 10mm socket, I'm going to snug down on the mounting bracket. 2 screws. And then over here, we're going to tighten up our hose on the throttle body, and that's an 8mm socket or flathead screwdriver. Making sure it's nice and snug. Tighten up on those clamps. Now we can put the engine cover on. Make sure you put the rubber bushings on top of the mounting studs and push down on it. Just like that. The push. And then you have the 2 mounting bolts. That's a 10mm socket. You're going to line up the 6 tabs that are on the slots on the bottom. Across the bottom, you've got 3 per side. Line them right up with the bumper cover that has the slots in them. You're going to have to tilt the grill cover just to line right up, and then you're going to push it in until it clicks. And then you have 6 plastic push pins on the top. Sometimes when they're new, they're kind of tough to put on. So you got 3 on each side of the grill. To reattach your negative cable, slide it down over, make sure it is all the way down. 10mm wrench. Once you feel it bottom out, grab the cable and pull up on it so that you're not putting any pressure on that lead stud. Make sure it's not loose. So now we're going to fill this top power steering fluid reservoir with some fluid. Now the manual says power steering fluid for Nissan power steering fluid or equivalent Dextron 6 full synthetic ATF, and that's what we're going to be using today. So with a little funnel and full synthetic ATF, I'm going to fill this reservoir up. I'm going to go past the full line because I know it's pretty low. And then we're going to show you how to burp the system without starting it. Never start it right away if the fluid's been empty. We're going to just turn the steering wheel dry to get all the air bubbles out. Put the cover back on, and then make your way over to the steering wheel without starting it. If you have to unlock the steering wheel, go ahead and just put it in the on position, but don't start the engine, and turn the steering wheel in a slow rotation all the way to the right, all the way to the left. Sometimes it takes up to 10 turns. Now I'm just going to put the key in the on position so that I can turn the steering wheel all the way in slow motion to the right and back to the left. Now this is going to push that ATF or power steering fluid through the system and burp it, making all the air pockets come to the top. It's really important not to start a power steering pump after we've drained the fluid because you can burn the pump out. And this is just basically moving the pump, and the valves are opening up inside, and it's sucking down that power steering fluid from the reservoir, and it's filling the void. So I'm going to do it one more time, and then I'm going to go check my level. Bring it to center. Let's go check our level. Take my cap off, and you can see it sucked it down past the minimal. So that's pretty good. Okay, got some air out of that system. I'm going to bring it right up to max. So now I have a good line to go by. It says max hot. Obviously the car's not hot. We haven't been running it. And I'm going to just turn that wheel 5 more times. And if the fluid does not move, you're set to start it up and run it. If you hear a whiny noise, shut it off and recheck your fluid. You've got to get the air out of that system. Once the whining stops, everything seems good. Check the fluid after you run it for a while. When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.